Hello, welcome to a Patreon exclusive video tour of our new bungalow. I'll show you around our new home and also talk about some of the woodworking projects that I've got planned for the future as we make our way around. But first, a bit of information. We moved here in June, so we've been here about 4.5 months. The price of this place was around £260,000 and it's a much bigger property than the others that we viewed. I think we saw 4 houses in total, but this one was the cheapest and it was also the biggest. I think it was cheaper for 3 reasons. The main one being the layout, which made no sense whatsoever when we moved in. We've changed a few things around, so now it works a bit better, but it's never going to be ideal. I think the previous owners just kept adding bits onto it without really thinking it through properly, which is a shame. Secondly, it needs a fair bit of work and modernisation. And thirdly, it's right next to a main road, which for us isn't really an issue. Ria has lived near a busy road for most of her life, and for me it's not an issue either. In fact, I quite like the fact that I can make noise in my workshop without needing to worry too much about the neighbours, because I'll never be louder than some of the lorries or motorcycles that come tearing past at 60 miles an hour. One more thing to mention is that it's a little bit of a building site at the moment. Lots of changes going on, so please excuse the mess. We borrowed some extra money on the mortgage to do some of the priority building work as soon as possible. It's not going to cover everything we want to do, but it'll at least get us a new kitchen and hopefully a bathroom too, but we'll see how far it stretches. So where you enter, this used to be 2 different rooms. On this side was the porch, and as you can see it was very small. This line on the wall here and along the ceiling is where the wall was, obviously. The other side of the wall used to be a dressing room, and that's because the room through there was originally a bedroom. This wall over here, this is rendered, so this used to be the external wall of the property. And this is one of many extensions that the bungalow's had. Not by us, I should add, but over the years. So you can see now it's a really big space. It's going to make for a really nice porch. There's still quite a lot of work to be done in here. All of the walls and the ceiling, which is currently Artex, is all going to be plastered over, hopefully later on this week. Once that's done, I will be laying some of these floor tiles, and then the whole space can be decorated. And in the longer term, I'm going to be putting in some sort of coat and shoe storage, probably in an L shape along this wall, and probably some sort of bench so that you can sit down and put your shoes on. So around here is the living room. And as I mentioned, before we moved into the property, they were using this as their bedroom, which is a strange choice really, because obviously it's right next to the main road, so it gets quite a lot of noise. Dylan, say hello. We've done a fair amount of work in here too. It's been completely redecorated. We've put the TV up on the wall there. All of the power is hidden behind it. This is the only room in the house that doesn't have Artex on the ceiling, which is nice, but it also doesn't have any light pendants, as you can see. But we get around that just by having lots of feature lighting, and we quite like that in the living room. I'll put some photos up showing how it looked before we moved in. I made these corner shelves which were featured in a recent video. There's one of those at both ends holding one of these spider plants. Before we moved in, because this doorway over here was an entrance into the dressing room, it had these pine louvre doors which weren't a standard door height, so we actually had to lift the header on the door frame and put these new doors in. I think these doors are really cool. There's not much else to say about this room because it's basically all done. It's pretty much the only room in the house which is all done. We've also got a lot of these 1930s style doors in the property, which I really like. We've obviously sanded, primed and painted this one already. All of the others still need to be done. Through here is what we currently refer to as no man's land, because we're really not sure how to use this space at the moment. As you can see, it's a huge area, and this was used by the previous occupants as a living room, but we don't really want to use it as a living room, so we're thinking that we will probably add a wall here and a doorway to create a 3rd bedroom in the property, which we can use as a guest room. But currently we're using this space to store our new kitchen, which is yet to be fitted. This side of the room over here is going to be used as a dining room. We've got a new cabinet over here, which we bought locally. It's got these timber doors, which is really cool. We're going to use this as a drinks cabinet. It's got a little bit of restoration work that needs doing to it, but it's not in too bad shape. So that will be a future video. Obviously the walls all need to be decorated. They're in a bit of a state at the moment, as you can see. And we need to paint the brown coving up there, which is lovely. We brought with us some of the old furniture from the old house. So we've got the sideboard over here that you might recognise. That was a previous restoration project. And I've got another sideboard over here. Just need to adjust the exposure so you can see it. This was given to me by my nan, so eventually I'll be restoring that one too. So the wall I mentioned to create the third bedroom, which will be added here, and then we'll put a doorway in somewhere here. I'm hoping to do a lot of that work myself, probably all of that work actually, and that will probably be featured in a future video. The one concern I've got with doing that is that the dining room side over here hasn't got any natural light. It does have some light coming in through the office. Eventually there will be a set of double doors in that opening, and it also gets some light from the living room over here, but that's about it. So I'm a bit concerned that putting in a wall and a doorway here might mean that the space is a little bit dark, but I don't know if there's much we can do about that other than adding a light tunnel in through the loft, which would obviously cost a lot of money, so I don't think that's something that's on our agenda at the moment. Next is the office, which is over here. This is probably the room that you might recognise because this is where I shoot a lot of my video introductions and narrations, and it's also where I edit all my videos. This room we have decorated, but the ceiling still needs to be skimmed because again it's Artex. This is a really nice room because it gets loads of natural light from this set of double doors. And outside you'll see we have a huge patio, which is awesome. I've got a future project planned for out there too. I'm going to create some sort of large dining table, which will be really nice in the summer. So yeah, on a nice sunny day, this is a really lovely room to work in. Previously, before we moved in, this was a dining room, and I'll put some photos of how it looked before we moved in on screen now. This chair over here I picked up on eBay recently for just £5. This is an original Parker Knoll chair, and I'm going to have a go at reupholstering this and adding some new foam because it's a bit depleted. That will be a future video too. And also we thought it would be nice to have a footstool with this chair, and a couple of weeks ago I was at the dump, and our local dump actually has a resale store where they pull out some things and resell them. And we happened to find an old piano stool there, and I think I paid £2 for it, and that's going to be really nice to accompany this chair. Originally I was going to make a footstool from scratch for the chair, but now I don't have to. So that's the office, and we go back through no man's land into the hallway, and there's lots of bags of rubble here which need to be removed. Again, another 1930s door which we'll eventually paint. This room hasn't been redecorated. It's got a rather nasty green carpet which will eventually be replaced, but at least it's the right colour, I guess. In here is basically what Ria is using as her dressing room at the moment. Eventually this will be probably a guest bedroom, although I'd like to try and get an electric drum kit in here at some point, but we'll see how that goes. Over this side of the room is all fitted wardrobes, and in this house there's just a ton of storage. We really don't need all of this storage, so we're going to rip out this fitted wardrobe, which has some issues anyway because some of the doors are warped and they won't close properly, so that's all going to get ripped out. Okay, so back into the hallway. Up here is the loft hatch, and it's a really generous sized loft too, so we're going to use that for storage, and it's mostly boarded out, which is cool, although there are some signs of rats and mice up there. I did go up there and sprinkle around a load of peppermint oil recently in the hope that that would deter the rats and mice from living up there, and I haven't heard any signs of them since, so I'm hoping they've gone. Now on to the bathroom, and this is a room that requires an awful lot of work. As you can see, it's pretty dated in here. I'll show some photos on screen of how it looked when we moved in. As you can see, I've started ripping the tiles off the wall. But the trouble is, a lot of the plaster is coming away with the tiles. You can see that this is all really loose, just crumbles away. So what I've been doing is adding some tile bonding. So you can see here, I've tried to get the wall as flat and straight as possible so that it makes things easier to retile later. My plastering skills are pretty poor, and that's why there's just about as much plaster on the floor as there is on the walls. On the plus side though, this is a really big room. In that cabinet over there is the water tank, and then we've got 2 mirrored doors, and behind them a very shallow shelving area and some pine bed slat shelves, which are way too big a span to support the weight of anything, I should imagine. I think what we might end up doing is removing this cupboard here and then having a long shower cubicle along this wall, and then we'll move the sink to over here where the radiator is. Well, when I say move the sink, obviously we will get a new sink. And then that will allow us to have a larger fall on the waste pipe, because currently the waste pipe on this one runs under the floor and it doesn't have enough fall on it, so it blocks up regularly. So sink over here, and then a new bathtub over here, and probably a new toilet. A couple of other things to mention: I'll be replacing these cupboard doors at some point. I'll probably make some using some birch ply. I think that'll look quite nice. And the windows up here, probably looks on camera like these windows lead to the exterior, but actually there's a lean-to on the side of the property where our utility room is. So this room is quite dark too. There's no real natural light other than the light coming from the utility room. So what I'm thinking of doing is adding some sort of PIR lighting system, probably that goes around the skirting, just so that as soon as you enter the room you get a little bit of light on the floor. And that'll be nice at night, because obviously you don't really want to be blinded by a light when you get up to go to the toilet. And then we'll probably put some decent feature lighting around the top too, I should imagine. But the bathroom at the moment, although it looks like it should be a priority, it isn't, because we need to concentrate on the kitchen first of all, but this will definitely be next. Right, back into the hallway, and this over here is the master bedroom. And as you can see, again, it's a really good size. But at the moment, obviously we are having our kitchen ripped out, so a lot of our food and plates and everything is in here. Quite nice if you get hungry in the night, because obviously there's lots of food around. This cupboard over here is actually where our water comes into the property. So originally this must have been a sink, and there's a waste pipe on the outside of the wall too. So as you can see in there, we've got our tap. This cupboard looks totally out of place, so what I'm thinking is that I'll probably install some kind of boxed in seating area along this wall in future. That will be a future project too. We have redecorated this room. Well, I say we have, Ria has redecorated this room. I've done very little in here, to be honest, other than putting the TV up, although we still need to chase out the wall to hide the cable, as you can see. We've got all of these floor to ceiling wardrobe mirrors, which are fantastic. Again, loads and loads of storage in here for clothes and other stuff. The one problem that we have with the wardrobe though is that there was mold on the inside, because there was no ventilation in this room. So I've added some trickle vents to the windows, which will hopefully let the air flow in. And I've also drilled some holes along the top and the bottom, again to hopefully let the air flow into this space. And we've removed all of the mold, repainted. That was a horrible job. So it's looking pretty clean in there now, as you can see. And I'm hoping to find some sort of grommets or something, I'm not sure what they're called, to put into these holes just to clean up the look of them a bit. Again, Artex on the ceilings, so we'll look to get that skimmed at some point. You're probably noticing a theme by this point, which is very large rooms, lots of potential, but also lots of work. So that's the bedroom. Now onto the kitchen. This is basically a building site at the moment, as you can see. And I'll put some photos on screen to show the development so far. First of all, we removed part of the old kitchen, including the sink. Then we had the window removed and replaced with a new set of PVC French doors. Then we had the ceiling ripped down because it was in really bad condition, and also we need to run new electrics in the roof space. Then the new ceiling went up, and we had this lowered part of the ceiling which is going to hold the extractor above our kitchen island was all installed, and the new electrics were put in too. And this week all of the walls and all of the ceiling, including the lowered ceiling part, is all going to be plastered. And after that we can then install the kitchen, and then it's on to new flooring, because as you can see we've got some tiles over here, the carpet over here, so all of this needs to be leveled off. I think they're going to pour latex over the floor to level everything, and then we'll install a new floor. And then finally we can decorate the walls. All of this work has been done by a couple of my mates who are in the trade. I'd like to have done more of the work myself. I have helped out on a few bits, but obviously I work 2 jobs. I tend to work 6 days a week. Ria works 1 full-time job, so we really don't have time to concentrate on house renovations really. Also, obviously we'd be much slower at it, so sometimes it just makes sense to pay to get things done. Over here we've got the electrical cable which has been chased out through the floor, and that will serve the kitchen island. Over here in the corner is the consumer unit, and you'll notice that there's a 10mm cable here which goes up into the loft. That's actually going to be the new electrical supply for my workshop, so we'll be running an SWA cable out to the workshop. The electrical supply in the workshop at the moment really isn't powerful enough to run some of my machines, so that definitely needs to be done in future too. The kitchen that we've bought to go in here was supplied by Howdens. That was just the preference of the guys that are going to be fitting it. So at the moment, yeah, we're living without a sink. Well, I say without a sink, we do have a sink, but it's in another room. And we've got this old Range Master oven which was left at the property when we moved in. It's the slowest oven in the world to use, so it's a bit annoying, but apparently these are quite desirable, so I'll probably try and sell it at some point. Over here it used to be a window, because this used to be an exterior wall too. But I've blocked this up because basically we're going to be having the main stretch of kitchen along this wall, and I've built a shelving unit on the other side of the wall, and that'll be a future video, and I'll talk about that when we move to the next room. This is the old colour of the kitchen, this lovely turquoise colour, which is pretty hideous, and the walls are just caked in kitchen grease. They're very dirty and grubby, so we can't wait to get this all plastered over and cleaned up. Now on to the lean-to, which I mentioned earlier. So these are all our new kitchen appliances, which will eventually obviously go into the new kitchen, and we've got our kitchen sink down here. Luckily in here we've got a sink, one of these old Belfast sinks I think they're called. So this is where we're currently doing all of our washing up. So we're pretty lucky to have this really. We've got our washing machine down there. Over here is an old fitted cabinet, and this is where I store all of my workshop clothes. It's nice to be able to come through this door, put my clothes away in here and not get dust in the house. This over here is the shelving unit that I mentioned. I made this using some oak veneered MDF with a solid oak trim, and this needs to be patched up. I'm going to cement in the bricks that came away when I took the window out. So yeah, that's all going to be a future video. And then through here we have a small shower room which we have decorated, although I really want to do something about this orange pine sink unit and the orange pine ceiling, which I just don't like the look of orange pine, so that's going to have to go at some point. This isn't a particularly large room, but it is functional and it's much nicer than our other bathrooms, so it's the room that we tend to use the most. We've got a shower over here. Obviously this hasn't been retiled, these are the original tiles. We've just basically painted this room, and when we moved in originally the walls were orange too, so it was orange walls, orange pine on the ceilings. It was hideous. Through here is an old single garage. So the garage door would have been the end wall there, which is the other side of the driveway, and that's all been bricked up. And when we moved in, this was being used as a storeroom, and as you can see it still is. We've I've got a lot of kitchen stuff in here while the kitchen is being worked on. I've got lots of slabs of wood, some more storage, just crates full of stuff over there. So yeah, that's basically the house. Although there is one other room, but it's not attached to the house, which is a bit strange. If we go through to the kitchen and out, I'll show you what I mean. So that room I spoke of is this one here, the sunroom. Now this is a bit unusual in that it's not connected up to the house at all, and it's really hot in the summer and really cold in the winter. At the moment we're just using it as a storage area, to be honest, which seems a bit of a shame. And Ria actually wants to knock this down to open up the patio space, which seems like a bit of a shame to me, but she's got a good point, because she said if we don't knock it down it'll end up being used as a wood storage area, and as you can see, she's probably right. Certainly we won't be doing anything with this room anytime soon though, but it's one to ponder over and think about how we use the space in future. I had hoped to install a cat flap so that Dylan could come in and out as he pleases, because this would probably be a nice place for him to sleep. But as you can see, we've got fully glazed doors, so unless I knock through the wall, I don't think we'll be able to get a cat flap in here either. Now out into the garden. Round here is the large patio that I showed you earlier from the office, which is over there. Up this way is the rest of the garden, and we're very blessed here with a beautiful garden as well. When I say beautiful, that's aside from this ugly oil tank over here. We don't have mains gas at the property, so we rely on oil for the heating system. But the garden is fantastic. In the summer this was really nice place to be. We do have these strange plant beds in the middle. There were 3 originally, now there are only 2, because the third one I took out and I planted some grass seed, and as you can see it's starting to grow. So eventually this will all be lawn, and I think we'll probably take out these 2 beds as well, just to make one large lawn area. Beyond these bushes over here we have more garden, and as you can see on the left we've got a greenhouse, which is fantastic. I never thought I would see the day when I had a greenhouse. I've got my workbench in there because I've been cutting up some firewood, because over here, as you can see, we've got an incinerator, so it's a good way to get rid of all of my offcuts of wood, and sometimes I'll just sit out here in the deck chair in the dark burning some wood, which is rather nice. And then over here we've got lots and lots of raspberry plants. These were lovely in the summer. I think they're past their best now. They do require a lot of watering though. You have to water them every day, but fortunately we've got 3 water butts over there, so we've been watering those every day. And over here we've also got a blackberry bush, which again it's a little bit late in the season for them to be edible. But this view over here was one of the main selling points of the property for us. We absolutely love this field view. We've taken some amazing photos over here as well, and the sunsets just over there. When we moved in, the views were fantastic, and a few months later we couldn't see anything because of the crops in this field. They were so tall. I think they were maize or sweet corn, and they were way over head height, so we couldn't see a thing from this field. But since then they've obviously all been harvested, so we've got our view back again, which is nice. Over there in the distance, you won't be able to see them from here, but there are some horses. I haven't seen any barn owls out here yet. I had hoped that we would see them out here, but I've spent quite a few evenings out here on the lookout and none as yet. There is quite a lot of other bird activity though, and I'm hoping to get another long wildlife lens so that I can start taking photos of birds again now I live out here in the country. I used to have one, but I sold it and now I regret selling it. One of our fence panels is removable too. You can see here that this just lifts out and there's a ramp leading to the field, and I think that's because local residents are allowed to walk around the perimeter of the field, which would be fantastic for dog walkers. We don't have a dog though, and there are loads and loads of other walks to do, so we haven't actually explored this area yet, but I'm sure that at some point in the future we will. Over here is the shed, It's not even locked because there's nothing in here of value, and the shed's in a really bad way. The woodworm have got to it. As you can see, the floor is all rotten, so it's been kind of badly patched up by the previous occupants. There's woodworm everywhere, lots of spiders living in here. Not a particularly nice place to be, and to be honest, it all needs to be ripped down, and one day I will probably build a new shed here to replace it, but that won't happen anytime soon. I do have some pieces of metal stored in here. These are old fence posts or scaffold bars, I'm not sure what they are, but I've got all of these fittings that came with them, and the plan is to use all of those to make a table frame for the table that I mentioned earlier for the patio space. So that's a future plan. Can't wait to start on that one. So I think that's about it. I've shown you everything. Living out here so far has been amazing. I've absolutely loved it. It does require a lot of maintenance compared to living in a city centre terraced house. As you can imagine, it's just completely different living out here. But I never thought I'd have this amount of space. I never thought I'd have this amount of garden. It's just incredible, really. As I say, the property was affordable because of the amount of work that needs to be done to it. But that's something that we can do over the coming years, and I think this is a bit of a forever home for us, so I should imagine we will be here until we're very old. So lots of work to do, but lots of space, lots of potential. I think that's about it, so thank you for watching.